Hello my friends, in today's video we will take a look at Panasonic Lumix S14-28mm F4-5.6 macro for L-mount. This is a brand new ultra-wide to wide-angle zoom lens announced together with Panasonic S5 II. Zoom lenses starting at 14mm can offer a lot of creative options, and this one is also very reasonably priced, so it could be a valuable addition to the L-mount system. In this video, we will take a look at the optical qualities and the feature set of this lens in combination with the S5 II, and I will try to help you decide whether you should get one. 14 to 28mm focal range offers an extremely wide to wide field of view. You can get a very dramatic angle at 14mm, but getting it right may be challenging. You need to work a lot with the foreground, which is extremely emphasized, and also with the horizon. If you get it right though, you will get very immersive images. If the situation doesn't allow you to do so, you can always zoom in and take advantage of more all-round usable focal lengths such as 18, 24 or 28mm. I think that this is a very useful and quite versatile focal range and a great complement to your standard zoom. In this case, f4 to 5.6 aperture basically only affects the low light, since you won't get much of a subject separation at these focal lengths anyway. 14 to 28 is a very compact lens. It is just 89.8mm long and it only weighs 345 grams, which means that it is extremely light. Despite that, the build quality is pretty solid. The outer part is made of plastics, but the quality of the materials is completely fine, maybe even premium. This lens is weather sealed and it has a nice weather sealing gasket around the mount. It uses a standard 77mm filter thread. As you can see, the front element is quite small, so 77mm is sufficiently oversized. I have tested it with a prototype filter system that I can't show you at the moment, but there were no issues with vignetting. High quality lens hood is included in the box. It is pretty shallow because it is an ultra-wide lens, but I appreciate that it has a proper release button. Regarding the control elements, there is the zoom ring, focusing ring and AF/MF switch. The zoom ring is very smooth and the resistance is completely even. The throw is pretty short, which is a good thing in this case in my opinion. The focusing ring is also extremely smooth, it has a very reasonable amount of resistance and a nice grippy texture. On Lumix S cameras, you can choose between linear and non-linear focusing and adjust the angle, which I appreciate a lot, but the focus throw is quite short even in the maximal setting. There is also an AF/MF switch on the left side, which is nice to see despite that there is one on all Lumix S cameras. So how about the optical qualities? I have decided to test this lens with a 24-megapixel sensor because that is what the S5 II uses, and that is the most relevant Panasonic L-mount camera at the moment. I'm actually testing this lens with the original S5 because the Lightroom is not compatible with the S5 II yet. The image quality is interchangeable though. Starting at 14mm, the central sharpness is great right from f4. There is a bit of chromatic aberration, but you won't notice it in practical use. Contrast is also great. f5.6 looks pretty much identical, so still great sharpness and contrast with some chromatic aberration. Basically the same applies to f8, which looks great overall. The contrast is slightly lower at f11, but you will hardly notice that. The sharpness in the corners is also very decent right from f4 with pretty good contrast and not much chromatic aberration. The corners look very similar from f4 to f11. I can't see much difference at 24 megapixels. There are lenses with better corner sharpness out there, but all things considered, I can say that I am very happy with the corner sharpness at 14mm. At 20mm we can see very similar central sharpness. Minimal aperture at 20mm is f4.7. The resolution is very good, so is the contrast, but there is a bit of chromatic aberration. f5.6 looks pretty much the same, and so does f8. Again, the contrast starts to decrease around f11. The corner sharpness and especially the contrast is a bit weaker at f4.7. It is not bad, but there is a room for improvement. The corner sharpness is a bit better at f5.6 and f8. Finally, at 28mm we can see a very good sharpness and contrast at f5.6, which is now the widest aperture available. Some chromatic aberration is visible as well. f8 looks the same. This time I don't really see any signs of diffraction at f11. The corner sharpness is quite solid at f5.6, but the contrast is a bit weak. It gets better at f8 and it actually seems to be the best at f11. Overall, I am happy with the optical qualities in combination with a 24 megapixel sensor. Considering that this is an extreme focal range and also the weight and price category, I can't complain. You will get maximal sharpness in the center of the frame at any focal length right from the widest aperture. The corner sharpness is more than good enough for intended purposes. It can definitely take very nice real-world images in combination with the S5 II. I can also say that it is more than good enough for 6K video. Profile corrections in the Lightroom are already available and they are very useful as expected. There is a ton of barrel distortion at 14mm, but the profile corrections will neutralize it in exchange for some image quality in the corners. There is a lot less diffraction at longer focal lengths, but the corrections are still necessary. Minimum focus distance is just 15 cm, which translates to 0.5 times magnification at 28mm. The image quality at the minimum focus distance is also very solid, so thumbs up for that. On the other hand, the bokeh isn't really a topic here. You can't get much of a subject separation at this kind of focal length and apertures. It only has 7 aperture blades, so the rendering of the bokeh is very average. The autofocus works very well in combination with the S5 II. It may actually be a bit faster than with other lenses that I've tested on the S5 II. It is always 100% accurate, very fast, and there is no hunting whatsoever. It works just as well in the video. Importantly, the autofocus motor is completely silent. Overall, I have no complaints about the autofocus system. This lens appears to be parfocal, which means that the subject will stay in focus as you are zooming in and out. The amount of focus breathing is very low at all focal lengths, especially for an ultra-wide zoom lens. That means that the objects in the frame won't significantly change their size when you are zooming in and out. Big thumbs up for that. As expected, this lens is not stabilized, but the S5 II has a very interesting in-body image stabilization, as you have probably heard. Static shots at these focal lengths look very stable, that is not an issue at all. The stability when walking at 14mm is very good, but there is a lot of warping in the corners. S5 II walking stabilization is an incredibly complex topic, I have made a video about that and it will be linked in the description. Nevertheless, the in-body image stabilization in the S5 II is more than sufficient for reasonable use. To sum up, Panasonic Lumix S 14-28mm F4-5.6 macro is in my opinion a great addition to the L-mount lens selection. It offers a very solid optical performance. There are lenses with better corner sharpness out there and it does rely on profile corrections, but considering the size, weight and especially the price of this lens, I am more than happy with the output. The build quality is very good. It is weather sealed and I appreciate the option to customize the manual focusing. Autofocus works great as well. Two special features of this lens are great semi-macro capabilities and basically no focus breathing whatsoever. Overall, Lumix S 14-28mm F4-5.6 is a very pleasant way to get an access to this kind of focal range without breaking the bank. That means that I can recommend it to the users of the L-mount system. So that's it for this video, thank you for watching, I hope that you liked this video and that you have found it to be useful. Stay tuned for more videos and maybe consider subscribing if you don't want to miss my future content. I appreciate your feedback in form of thumbs up or thumbs down. If you would like to ask anything or share your opinion, please do so in the comment section and see you next time.